Book of 1 Samuel. High in the golden hills of Bethlehem, young David watched over his father's sheep. While the world slept, he strummed his harp, his songs drifting through the quiet air. He carried a simple sling in his belt, ready to protect his flock from any danger. One day, an unexpected visitor arrived. It was the prophet Samuel, sent by God to find a new leader. David's brothers were tall and strong, but Samuel shook his head at each one. When David was finally called from the fields, he stood before the old prophet, his heart racing. Samuel stepped forward and lifted a horn filled with fragrant oil. He poured it over David's head, anointing him in front of his family. It was a sign that God had chosen this young shepherd for a great purpose. David felt a new, quiet strength begin to grow deep inside his heart. Far from the sunny hills, King Saul sat in his dark palace, troubled by heavy thoughts. David was summoned to play his music for the restless king. As David's fingers danced across the harp strings, the flickering torchlight chased away the shadows, and for a moment, the king found peace. But a dark shadow loomed over the land. A giant named Goliath stood in the valley, his bronze armor clanking like thunder. He mocked the soldiers of Israel, his voice shaking the earth with every word. "Is there no one brave enough to face me?" he roared, and the army trembled. David arrived at the camp to bring food to his brothers. When he heard the giant's threats, he didn't feel the fear that the soldiers felt. "God help me save my sheep from lions and bears," David said, his voice steady and clear. "He will help me face this giant too." David refused the king's heavy armor, choosing instead what he knew best. He walked down to a babbling stream and carefully selected 5 smooth stones. He felt the cool water on his hands and tucked the stones into his pouch, ready for the battle ahead. With his sling in hand, David ran toward the giant. Goliath laughed, but David didn't stop. He swung the sling with all his might, and a single stone flew through the air with the speed of an arrow. It struck true, and the mighty giant fell, proving that courage is louder than any roar. Though David was now a hero, King Saul grew jealous of the people's love for the young shepherd. The king's face twisted with anger, forcing David to leave the palace and hide in the deep, dark caves of the desert. The bright days of the palace were gone, replaced by long, cold nights. Even in the darkest cave, David was not truly alone. By the light of a small, glowing fire, he took his harp and began to write songs of praise. He knew that no matter how deep the shadows, God's light would always find him. He waited with hope, for he knew he was never forgotten.